So I want to go ahead and start talking about what will essentially be the main and central assignment in this class, and that is the synthesis matrix. You will essentially turn in the synthesis matrix twice. You will turn in a final at the end of the semester, and you'll also turn in a draft. And we're going to be talking about the draft mostly right now, but a lot of the instructions for the draft and the final are the same. So what is a synthesis matrix? It's basically a really fancy and glorified name for a spreadsheet that helps you organize all of the sources that you find as you do research. It's a really great pre-step for writing a research paper or doing a research project because it helps you organize all the sources that you find and group them by theme. I'll show you an example of what that looks like here in a minute. What you're going to end up doing in this class is you're going to go out, and as we learn how to use library databases and search the library catalog, you will find 8 sources. Really, for your draft, you only need 5 that all answer your research question or help answer your research question. Of the 8 sources that you need, you'll need to find 2 peer-reviewed scholarly articles, 1 magazine or trade publication, 1 book or ebook, 1 website, and then 3 sources of your choice. Now we're going to talk this week or next week about how to use databases to find scholarly articles, magazines, and trade publications, but we won't talk about books or ebooks or websites for another week or 2. So really for your draft, I would focus on finding the peer-reviewed scholarly articles and the magazines and trade publications. You can also do the 3 sources of your choice, because those can be scholarly articles, magazines, and trade publications as well. Now for the 3 sources of your choice, I don't want you to choose regular websites that you would find on Google. The point of the class is really to learn how to use library sources, and so I really want those 3 sources of your choice to be things that you found through the library website. The other thing with websites is they can be kind of tricky because newspaper websites and magazine websites also have an online presence, so things like The Atlantic or The New York Times. When you find an article on the NewYorkTimes.com or the WashingtonPost.com, those are technically websites because in most cases they weren't actually articles that appeared in the print publication, and it's really hard to double check that. So if you want to use sources like that, make sure to just use them as your one website source. And then once you've found all of your sources, you're going to organize them in your spreadsheet, and now might be a good time for me to just show you what that kind of looks like in the example. So if you want to go ahead and open up the assignment example, I can show you what I mean. So at the time that I did this several years ago. I must have been pregnant and very interested in pregnancy-related things. My research question was around the benefits and risks of choosing a midwife over an obstetrician for delivery. When I researched this, I was looking a lot at scholarly journal articles and not necessarily all the books and stuff that I'm having you guys find, so just so you know, mine looks a little bit different than what it should be. But you get the general idea. All of my sources are listed across the top. I put them in chronological order so that I could see how the conversation on my topic had changed over time. You can choose to do this or not, depending on whether or not you think it would be helpful. And I gave a full citation for each source. Below that, I wrote a summary for each source. And then below that, I included things that I found to be themes across the different sources that I was finding. So things like birth outcomes, C-section rates, medical benefits and risks, emotional benefits and risks. Your themes are going to be different than my themes, but the idea is that as you look through your sources, you start looking for evidence that addresses that particular theme. Every time I found in my articles some evidence that was around the theme of birth outcomes, I pulled it out and I listed it in my spreadsheet. So later, when I hypothetically was writing my paper, I already had my evidence there ready to go. So as far as what you put in each of these spreadsheet cells, you can do one of 2 things. You can either pull down a quote from your source, or you can write a summary of your own. The last thing I want to say about this is that a lot of people will ask me how many of the spaces need to be filled out. And I would say as a general rule, only about 50% of the spaces need to be filled out. That said, you do want to make sure that you have enough content that if you were going to go back and write a paper with what you did with your synthesis matrix, that you would have enough evidence for you to be able to write that paper. There is a template available on the assignment instructions. If you open up that template, you can see where you can start filling this out if you want to. You can fill this out directly in Google Sheets. You would need to go up to File, Make a Copy to do that. Or you can download this as an Excel file and work in Microsoft Excel. Some students find that to be a little bit easier to do. In the blue up here is where you would write your research question. In the gray is where you would include your citations. Unfortunately, Zotero does not work directly with Google Sheets, so you'll need to probably download your Zotero citations to a Word document or a Google Doc and then paste them in here. I'm sorry, that's a little clunky. Then you'll write your summaries, and then you'll go down through your key themes, write in your own key themes here, and then you can start including your quotes and summaries over here. Remember to include page numbers if you have them. Finally, I have the grade breakdown at the bottom. The draft of this with 5 sources is worth 10 points. And for the most part, I grade on completion, particularly for the draft. The first thing that I'm going to be looking at is your sources, that you've given me 5 out of 8 sources and that they are appropriate choices for your research question and that they fit the parameters that I set out above. So are they peer-reviewed journals? Are they magazines and trade publications? Things like that. I'm going to be looking at your citations. You can choose whatever citation style you want. Just let me know which one you choose and that you've got accurate citations that are listed there and numbers, page numbers for each quote. I'm going to be looking at your summary and key themes. Make sure that you include summaries and make sure that you list all 4 of your themes over on the side. You can have more than 4 themes if you would like to. And then finally, I'm going to be looking in the spreadsheet cells and making sure that the content there reflects the key themes and displays an understanding of the text that you've read. All of that total will be worth 10 points. Like I said, for the draft, I'm just going to be grading really primarily on completion. I'll grade a little bit more normally when you turn in the final draft.